Alright everybody, today I'm going to show you guys how to create Spanish guitar beats all from scratch in FL Studio. We're going to be using VSTs, so you don't actually need to know how to play the real guitar over there. We're going to do everything from FL Studio, and it's also going to be a little bit more simple, so a lot of you guys can really nail down this Spanish sound. So let's not waste any more time, let's just jump right in. Alright, so now that we are here in FL Studio, we firstly want to open up a VST. In this case, I have opened up this Nylon Sky guitar in Omnisphere. It's from the Sonic Extensions, hands down one of the best nylon guitars when it comes to VSTs. So I highly recommend using this one if you're going for more of that Spanish type of sound. It's super realistic and it always works. Next, we want to close this and obviously go for the BPM. This time we're actually going to lower the BPM down a lot. So let's actually be something in between 90 and 100. Let's just start with 100 BPM and then we can maybe lower it a bit later on. We're going to keep that as our base. So now that we have this, we also want to open up the piano roll and we want to pick a scale. Now in this case, I have actually already picked a scale and it's going to be A minor. We might change this a little bit later on, but I highly recommend going for something like A minor, D minor. It usually sounds very nice when you're working with a Spanish type of sound. Right, so from here, I'm going to show you guys how to create that Spanish type of sound in a very simple and effective way. So the way to do this is just by actually making a chord in a little bit of a different way than usual. So usually we would go for like a triad chord like this, and we are kind of going to do this but in a little bit of a different way, like I said. So we want to actually add one more note that is down here. So we are going to have these 4 notes and then we are actually going to pitch this note up by 1 octave. So we have all of these 4 right here. Now from here, we obviously want to strum these out since that's really what we want from that Spanish sound. You really want to make sure that the guitars are spread a bit out and not having them all hit at the same exact time. So let's start by spreading these out like this. As you guys can see, these two are kind of layered on top of each other. So I'm just going to highlight this one and move it slightly off grid so we get that realistic sound. Also make sure to go down here and adjust the velocity a little bit of these different notes. So now we kind of have this strummed out chord that sounds like this. You can already hear we kind of have that Spanish sound. We would definitely want to build off of this. So the trick now is pretty much just going over to the slice tool and just chopping up some of the notes you already have. And again, you can kind of do the same trick that we already did right here. So if you want to layer some more notes, it's really going to help you get more of that realistic and Spanish sound. Right, so now that I have chopped up a couple of the different notes, as you guys can see, it creates a lot of movement with the melody that we're working on, as well as these top notes right here are pretty much just chopped up notes that we already have, but they are just pitched up by 1 octave. So you can really play around with the voicing as well if you want to pitch up some of these, or maybe this one. You can kind of create a little bit of a different sound, but just make sure to use the slice tool, chop up some of the notes you already have, and it's going to really give you that sound you're looking for. Now I also want to try to focus a little bit on these half steps, as if you are actually going for a Spanish sound, you kind of want to create a little bit of tension here and there. It's really going to help you emphasize that sound. So as you guys can see, I have these 2 notes that are kind of right next to each other. So since this one is kind of ending on the last section of the bar, I think I'm actually going to copy this over but pitch it up by 1 semitone so we can have it on the F6 for the first section of the bar. Then we are going to copy this over and we're just going to adjust these notes right here. So I think I'm just going to pitch this down to A instead, and then we can maybe add some more notes, maybe pitch this one up and see how that sounds. Yeah, so just a few adjustments like that can really go a long way. Right, so for this last chord, I'm just gonna pitch it down. I've seen this trick with the Spanish beats on YouTube before. So a lot of people tend to just pitch down the last chord by 5 semitones. So we're gonna do exactly that. So it's gonna hit on this E instead of the A. Yeah, so that sounds smooth. Now for the guitar, I did just open up a preset that I already have when it comes to guitars, and it's actually the preset that I use for live guitars, but it's very simple. So it's pretty much just the NS1 to suppress some of the noise, and then it's just some simple EQ with a little bit of reverb as well as some delay, and then I just added a last EQ to really cut out some of the low end, since we don't really want that, especially when it comes to Spanish guitar beats. A lot of the texture is really in those higher frequencies, so make sure to remove the low end, and then we can actually add a bass or something later on that's going to fill that out. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is add a vocal. Now I went into Splice and I searched up Spanish vocal right here in the search section, scroll down and I found this one right here. La vida,
vida es un carrusel.
It's literally a Spanish vocal in Spanish. So I'm gonna download this and drag it into FL Studio. Now that I dragged it in, I did chop it up a little bit just so it fits nicely with the guitar sample. And then I just did add a couple effects like the magnitude transition 1 preset in RC20, as well as just a simple EQ and also a little bit of roam. This roam is about 40%, so I want it really, really ambient. It's pretty much just a reverb. And now with the guitar, it sounds like this. So you can hear me really get that Spanish vibe. Next thing we want to do now is just add a layer to fill out the sample a little bit. Now the way I'm going to do this is actually going to be very, very simple. Like I said, we don't want to overcomplicate this. We just want that Spanish vibe to fit nicely. So I'm just going to open up Mellotron 5, find a cool little preset and just lay it down on the same chord as we did with the guitar. Right, so as you guys can see, we are literally just using the same exact chords that we are using from the guitar, just on this Mellotron 5 preset instead. But what I will do, since I want it a little bit higher pitched, I'm just going to Control A everything and then pitch it up by 1 octave so we have it in the higher frequencies. Now this preset sounds like this. As you guys can see, it's a lot of texture to it, so that's kind of why we want to fill out the sample a little bit. Alright, the next thing we're going to do now is add that proper guitar counter melody on top, the typical Spanish type of triplet sound that you guys are familiar with. And in my personal opinion, the best way to actually do this is just by using your keyboard. So let me explain what I mean by this. What I'm going to do is just open up another instant of the same exact guitar that we were using earlier. This time we're just going to open up a piano roll so we kind of have it separately. And then I'm going to go into this piano part right here, make sure it's turned on, right click it and also pick the same exact key that you're working in. As you guys remember, we were working in the A minor scale. So we're going to pick that, and now everything that we press on our keyboard is pretty much going to be in key. So whatever I do right here, it's going to be in key. Now what I'm going to do is just actually play the sample on loop over and over again. Then I'm just going to add a couple different hits here and there. So something like this, we can just kind of put throughout the whole sample and it's going to sound smooth. Obviously, when you kind of record it, you can go in and manually just adjust it. As you guys can see, this is not the same exact thing as I recorded. I did have to go in and just manually adjust some of the notes as well as the velocity to really get that cool sound. Now let's go in and add a bass. I'm actually going to open up Analog Lab 5 and try to use a bass from there. So with the bass right here as well. Super smooth. Right, so now that we have the majority of the sample finished, it's time we add some drums. As for the drum sounds I'm using, they're of course coming from the Motion Bundle kit. So if you guys like any of the drum sounds you hear in this video, make sure to check out the kit. It is on my website, which is BBMarko.com, or you guys can just click the first link down below. It will send you right to the Motion Bundle kit, so make sure to check it out while you can. Get the bounce going with the claps. Next, we want to pick some bouncy hi-hats. I'm gonna go with this one. Low-key, with these Spanish type of samples, I sometimes feel like those short and snappy hi-hats are actually super clean. So I might actually pick the out knob up a bit on this one. Cool little hi-hat pattern as well. Fits the vibe nicely. For Spanish type of stuff, definitely go in and add some rims. As you guys can see, we have a lot of different rims in this section, so I'm just gonna pick one that sounds nice. Bass and kick right here. Super bouncy stuff. Now that we have the beat finished, I'm quickly just gonna arrange the whole thing and I'll show you guys the final beat. Alright, so here we have the full beat. A little bit of a longer intro.
Shut up, Marco.
Drops in nicely right here with the bass and vocal. Spanish vibe for sure. And then it drops. Top guitar. Cool little 808 pattern. Vocal comes in. Goes into the verse. Bit of a calmer vibe right now before it drops back in. vocals, drums, super punchy. Goes into another bridge. Almost the same as the intro. Then it drops back in.